I'm Stephanie Arell. You may notice that I'm sitting a little differently in this video, and that is because I'm getting ready to talk to you about confidence. I'm going to start kind of at the end to say to you that I think confidence really does come from our most deepest sense of self and self-worth. Now, that is a kind of amorphous term, and I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about self-trust, all of which deserve their own video, but I don't think we can talk about self-confidence without talking about all three together. But what I want to say to start off with is that there's a physiological component to confidence that we can adapt into our bodies even if we don't necessarily have the belief of confidence at any given moment. So if I sit here forward like this, I'm already exhibiting to you a certain level of confidence. If you were to walk in, you would think that I felt very secure in my body and in what I'm saying to you right now. That may or may not be the case, right? But I look like that. I've given you the feeling by the way I'm holding my body that I feel that way. So there are some things that we can do that actually will physiologically increase our sense of strength or self-confidence. And perhaps it's sitting like this, but I mean actual positions. So one thing that I tell students sometimes is if they have some important interview to go into the bathroom before and stand like this for 2 minutes. So this position in and of itself will literally change your physiology. You will feel a sense of confidence afterwards, but it's 2 minutes. One other thing that I've shown people is if I sit like this, I have a certain physiology that starts to develop that leaves me pretty closed. But if I sit with my arms over a chair this way, I give you a completely different sense of myself, and I feel different than if I sit this way. So if you could start with the imagination of what physiologically actually helps you feel confident. And practice those positions, practice those bodily enactments, so to speak. Okay, so how can you reflect on confidence? So we'll start there. Self-confidence is really a feeling of belief in yourself and a belief in your own self-worth, which I'll return to. You can measure that by the act of thinking about when someone compliments you, do you believe those compliments? Do you believe when someone says, oh, you're really good at that? Do you believe that? When someone says, oh, you look great today, do you believe that? When someone says, wow, that was such a smart comment, do you believe that? There's a variety, right? We can imagine lots of things that people say nicely about us or compliment us. So the question to start with is, do I believe the nice and good things that people say about me? I would encourage you to inhabit those things when they happen if you don't. So that if someone says to you, gosh, I think you're a really great person, and something in your head clicks and suggests otherwise, stop for a minute and tell yourself, I'm a really great person. Like, feel into, imagine that, and be with it for some time and see how it feels. Practice that. It's sort of like practicing your body position. Like, what does this feel like? How does it feel to do this? How can I inhabit this position and this position and this position? I'm thinking of the book suddenly called Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. And she talks a lot about women in the workplace and ways to grow self-confidence and things that women don't necessarily do that men do and take for granted. And it's not great to put that in a binary, but that's definitely what she's talking about. Go read it if you think that might be helpful to you. Now, let's take a little bit of a backtrack, because in the self-confidence realm, we have self-worth and self-trust. In the next video, I will talk a little bit more deeply about self-worth and how it's related to shame. But the way that we can think about self-worth in relationship to confidence is that we internally believe that we are worthy. When we internally believe that we are worthy, confidence comes naturally. If we have histories that are painful or include some betrayal by people that are very close to us, the ability to have an internal self of sense of worth that's just innate and natural and there is very undercut. For some of us, working on what it means to feel worthy is difficult and takes a lot of time. But it does have to do with confidence. When we feel worthy, we feel more confident. Again, I'll return to this in the next video because it's complicated. It's not so easy to say something bad has happened and then you just jump and feel worthy and great. That's not a natural linear pathway. Another element of self-confidence is self-trust. Self-trust is not really written about. I think at some point I'd like to do some more writing on what it means to say I trust myself. But it's an interesting question. I mean, do you trust yourself? Can you trust yourself to do what you say you're going to do for yourself, for example? That gets into issues of integrity. And integrity is important to think about because if we make a commitment to ourselves, do we keep it? Again, I'm going to say that again. If you make a commitment to yourself, do you keep that commitment? That is one of the things that perpetuated can build self-trust. And I think self-confidence, because part of self-confidence is believing that you have the ability to do something. And you'll believe it more if your track record of integrity and self-trust related to your own behavior is high, right? So if I say, you know, I'm gonna get out of bed at 5 a.m. for a year, and I do it, I can believe that I can do a lot of things if I can get up at 5 a.m. for a year. Now, I'm not suggesting that's the best choice, and it might not be for some people, but it is an idea or gives you an imagination for how to get to what it means to say self-trust and self-confidence. From my experience, self-confidence is easy to perform for me. It is not always easy to believe. I think it takes a pretty conscious effort of my own integrity and my own ability to believe I can do anything that I decide is worth my doing to maintain confidence internally. I'm a pretty driven person. I make goals, I set them, and then I achieve them. And that in and of itself builds my confidence. So I think that's another exercise that people can do, right? You can have a goal for yourself and then meet it, and that gives you a little boost that enables you to meet the next goal. But that's also a personality thing. So there's some examination that needs to go into what does it mean for you to have integrity, and what kind of behaviors help you build your own integrity. And again, I think that's different for everyone. So somebody who needs 9 hours of sleep and can't get to bed till 11 should not make 5 a.m. a goal, because that then doesn't really make sense for their well-being. So I think that these external goals that people give us that have value or seem like they have value don't work so much if they don't actually add value and functioning and growth and health to our own lives. So I've been talking mostly about the individual life and the interior life and our experiences, not with other people. But another element, I think, of confidence and trust and worth has to do with other people. So there is a common understanding sort of set forth by Judith Herman in her book, Trauma and Recovery, that the stuff of trauma often has to do with our relationships with our most intimate people. And paradoxically, recovery relies on the presence of other people. So when I think about terms like self-trust, self-worth, self-confidence, there is an element of the other involved in those terms or in the meaning of those terms, right? So let's think about it this way. When we have agency and autonomy and we can perform acts and we can trust ourselves, and when our behaviors fall into such a line that we feel inner pride, right, or inner confidence, that's great. And that's a critical component of our own health. But the other reality is we need other people. In our being, we need other people. There's a level of dependence we have on the other. Maybe not for our self-worth, but to support that, right? When somebody loves us, we feel worthy. And I think that's a really real experience. It's a good measure of a healthy relationship too. Do I feel worthy in this relationship? Does this relationship support my self-worth? Does this relationship increase my ability to be or perform integrity towards myself? Does it increase my self-trust? And sometimes you might answer no to that, and then maybe there's a consideration of the value of that relationship in your life. Perhaps it doesn't mean to discard the relationship, but it means it gives you some information about the quality of that relationship. On the other hand, a relationship that has a secure attachment, that feels good, that really is truly loving or has love in it in some capacity, whether that's a romantic partner or a friend or a parent or a child or a sibling, the relationships where we feel that sense of worthiness or confidence or self-trust, that may be as a result of a healthy dependence on that person. And I think our culture tends to push away from the idea of dependence, and it's much more complex than what I'm explaining right now, so it deserves some more thought and some more words perhaps. But I don't want us to think like developing self-confidence and self-worth is something we just set out to do by ourselves. Other people can be a part of that and can support it and can encourage us and can help us understand what that means for ourselves. So although self-confidence and self-trust and self-worth relates to our relationships with other people, I do think that our self-worth is really comes from someplace deep within us that deserves our nurturing, our care, our attention, our meditation, perhaps our ritualistic activity to support it, and also our awareness.